The porcelain shattered like his world had 3 years ago. Marcus Williams dropped to one knee in the marble bathroom of Atlanta's Meridian Hotel, watching expensive fragments scatter across the floor like broken promises. The golden faucet handle had snapped clean off, typical. Rich people paid for appearance, not quality, just like the hospital that let his wife die. He reached for his toolbox, fingers finding the familiar weight of his adjustable wrench. Outside these marble walls, the hospital gala continued in full swing. Champagne glasses clinking, donors congratulating themselves for their generosity. The same people who'd built a healthcare system that treated poverty like a disease. Marcus had seen the guest list. Dr. Richard Sterling would be down there somewhere, accepting accolades for innovative healthcare solutions. The man who'd personally denied Keisha's insurance claim, who'd called her complications non-essential emergency care. The bathroom door exploded open. She burst through like she was running from death itself, a woman in an emerald evening gown that probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. But it wasn't the dress that made his breath catch. It was the terror in her dark eyes, the blood on her knuckles, and the small device clutched against her chest like a lifeline. Their eyes met in the mirror's reflection, and time stopped. She was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that belonged in boardrooms and magazine covers, not hiding in hotel bathrooms. High cheekbones, natural hair swept into an elegant updo that was now coming undone. Intelligent eyes that held a depth of pain he recognized. "Please," she gasped, and her voice carried a desperation that bypassed his thoughts and went straight to his instincts. "Please, don't let them find me." Heavy footsteps pounded in the hallway outside. Radio chatter. The sharp click of dress shoes moving with military precision. Marcus didn't think. 20 years of training kicked in. First the Air Force, then teaching in rough neighborhoods where knowing how to protect people was survival. He grabbed the maintenance panel hidden behind the ornate mirror, pulling it free with practiced efficiency. Every luxury hotel had them. Access points for plumbing and electrical work, carefully concealed to maintain the illusion of seamless opulence. "In here," he hissed. She hesitated for exactly 1 heartbeat, studying his face like she was memorizing it. Then she squeezed through the opening, the flash drive disappearing into her dress. Marcus pushed the panel back just as the door slammed open. Henry Voss, the hotel's head of security, filled the doorway. But he wasn't alone. 2 men in charcoal gray suits flanked him, private contractors with the kind of eyes that had seen too much and felt too little. "You see anyone come through here?" Voss's voice was tight, professional, but Marcus caught the underlying tension. Marcus turned slowly, wrench still in hand, playing the part of the interrupted worker. "Just trying to fix this leak, man. You're letting all the cold air out." One of the gray suits pushed past Voss, checking the stalls, looking behind the door. His hand rested on something bulky under his jacket. Marcus kept his breathing steady, continued loosening and tightening the same bolt like he'd been doing it all night. "She's not here," the contractor reported. Voss's eyes lingered on Marcus for a moment too long. They had history. Not friendship, just the accumulated familiarity of 2 people who worked the same building. Voss knew Marcus was solid, reliable, invisible. The perfect maintenance man. "Lock down the floor," Voss said into his radio. "She's still here somewhere." They left as suddenly as they'd arrived. Marcus counted to 30, then tapped twice on the mirror. The woman practically fell out of the maintenance hatch, her legs shaking. She looked at him properly for the first time, really looked, and he saw something shift in her expression. Recognition of his intelligence beneath the work clothes. Gratitude mixed with something else, something that made his pulse quicken. "Thank you," she breathed. Then, quieter. "You don't know what you just did. Maybe you better tell me," Marcus said, surprising himself with his calmness. Because those weren't regular hotel security. She straightened, and despite her disheveled appearance, he saw the bearing of someone used to command, used to being obeyed. "My name is Dr. Amara Okafor. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Sterling Healthcare Systems." She held up the flash drive. "And this contains evidence that could save thousands of lives." Marcus's first instinct was to laugh. It sounded like something from a bad movie, but the fear in her eyes was real. And those men hadn't been playing games. "What kind of evidence?" "Internal emails," financial records, patient death statistics. Her voice grew stronger with each word. Sterling Healthcare has been systematically denying critical care to low-income patients. Pregnancy complications, emergency surgeries, cancer treatments, all rejected to boost profit margins. The wrench slipped from Marcus's fingers, clattering on the marble floor. Keisha? The flash drive is just part of it, Dr. Okafor continued quickly. Tomorrow morning there's a federal health committee hearing. If this evidence comes out before then, the entire conspiracy gets exposed. But they can't let that happen. So they want you dead, Marcus said quietly, or discredited, disappeared, whatever it takes. She looked at the bathroom door, fear creeping back into her voice. Doctor, Sterling has connections everywhere. Police, private security, even here in the hotel. Marcus thought of Zoe, safe at his neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, thought of his quiet life, his small dreams, the master's thesis he'd been working on in secret, healthcare access in underserved communities. Research he'd started to honor Keisha's memory. Then he looked at this woman, terrified but still standing, still fighting. Your evidence, he said slowly. Could it have saved my wife? Dr. Okafor's eyes widened. What happened to her? Pregnancy complications. 3 years ago. Sterling Healthcare called it non-essential emergency care. She died waiting for approval. The radio in the hallway crackled again. They were doing a floor-by-floor search. Marcus made a decision that would have seemed insane 5 minutes ago. I know this building better than anyone, he said, reaching for his toolkit. There's a service corridor that leads to the freight elevator, but you can't go looking like that. Have you ever met someone in the most impossible moment who completely changed your life? Let me know in the comments because this night is about to get wild. The service corridor smelled of industrial cleaner and forgotten dreams. Marcus led Dr. Okafor through the maze of pipes and electrical conduits that formed the hotel's hidden skeleton. She'd traded her heels for his spare work boots, steel-toed monsters that made her evening gown look even more surreal. Tell me about your wife, she said quietly as they navigated around a junction box. Marcus kept walking, but his steps slowed. Her name was Keisha. We were high school sweethearts. She wanted to be a nurse, help people in our community. He paused at a maintenance door, checking his key card. We found out she was pregnant the same month I finished my teaching degree. Happiest day of our lives. The door clicked open, revealing another corridor. What happened? Gestational diabetes. Should have been manageable with proper care, but Sterling Healthcare kept delaying approval for the monitoring equipment, said it wasn't medically necessary. Then came the complications. Dr. Okafor stopped walking. Marcus, She died in the hospital lobby, he continued, his voice steady but hollow, waiting for someone to decide her life was worth saving. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the hum of machinery. I'm sorry, Dr. Okafor said finally. I'm so sorry. That's why I'm helping you. Not just because you need it, but because... He turned to face her. Because maybe we can make sure it never happens to another family. She studied his face in the dim emergency lighting. You're not just a maintenance man, are you? Marcus almost smiled. I fix things. Broken pipes, broken electrical systems. I'm working on a master's degree in public health administration. Nights, weekends, whenever Zoe's asleep. Zoe? My daughter, she's 8, wants to be a doctor when she grows up. His voice softened. Says she's going to fix people like her mama wanted to do. Dr. Okafor's expression changed. You're doing all this alone? Had to. The life insurance company found a way to deny Keisha's claim too. Apparently, inadequate health care isn't considered wrongful death. He started walking again. But we manage. Zoe gets good grades, I keep the lights on, and someday I'll have the credentials to change things from the inside. How long have you been working on your degree? 3 years. Should be finished next spring. They reached the freight elevator. Marcus pressed the button, and the old machinery groaned to life. What about you? He asked. How did a chief medical officer end up running through hotel corridors? Dr. Okafor leaned against the wall, suddenly looking exhausted. I thought I was one of the good ones. Nigerian parents who sacrificed everything for my education. Full scholarship to Emory, top of my class in medical school. I joined Sterling because I believed in their mission statement, healthcare for all communities. The elevator arrived with a mechanical wheeze. When did you realize the truth? 6 months ago, I started noticing patterns in the patient denial reports. Too many pregnancy-related claims being rejected. Too many women who looked like me, like your wife. She stepped into the elevator, her voice growing harder. I started digging. Found the emails, the financial incentives for denial rates, the bonuses paid to administrators who kept costs down. And your fiancé? She looked down at her left hand where a diamond engagement ring caught the fluorescent light. Dr. Richard Sterling, the CEO's son. We've been together for 2 years. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Disappointment he had no right to feel. I found his name on the emails tonight, she continued. He's been part of it from the beginning. The man I was going to marry has been orchestrating the same system that killed your wife. The elevator descended slowly, giving them time to process. Why tonight? Marcus asked. Why run now? The federal hearing is tomorrow at 9 a.m. I was supposed to testify as a character witness for Sterling Healthcare. Instead, I'm going to present evidence that will destroy them. She held up the flash drive. But first I had to get this out of the building. Richard's security team was waiting in my office. So you ran. I ran. Through the gala, up the stairs, into the first room I could find. She looked at him with something that might have been wonder. Into you. The elevator shuddered to a stop at the loading dock level. Marcus's phone buzzed. Zoe's ringtone. Daddy? Her voice was sleepy, confused. Mrs. Rodriguez says you're working late again. That's right, baby girl. How was school today? Good. We learned about the water cycle. Miss Johnson says water never really disappears. It just changes form. Marcus met Dr. Okafor's eyes. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Soft, tender, like she was seeing something beautiful. That's right, sweetheart. It always finds its way back. Will you be home for breakfast? I hope so. Be good for Mrs. Rodriguez, okay? I love you, Daddy. Love you too, Zoe. He hung up to find Dr. Okafor still watching him. She sounds wonderful, she said softly. She's everything. My whole world. He checked the loading dock through the elevator's small window. But she deserves a world where people like her mama don't die waiting for care. Dr. Okafor nodded. Then let's make sure she gets it. The loading dock was clear, but Marcus could see black SUVs circling the block. They'd have to move fast. Dr. Okafor. Amara, she interrupted. If we're going to save the world together, you should call me Amara. Hit that like button if you believe healthcare should be a human right, not a privilege, because this night is about to test everything they believe in. The Atlanta Underground was a maze of forgotten tunnels, abandoned storefronts and service corridors that most people never knew existed. Marcus had discovered them during his teaching years, when he'd volunteered for urban exploration programs with at-risk kids. Now those same tunnels might save their lives. Stay close, he whispered, leading Amara down a metal staircase that descended into shadows. These tunnels connect to the old rail system. We can move through most of downtown without being seen. Amara followed, her borrowed work boots echoing on the metal steps. The emerald gown looked surreal in this underground world, like a fairy tale princess who'd stumbled into the wrong story. How do you know about this place? Used to bring my students here, field trips to show them Atlanta's hidden history. He pulled out a small flashlight. Figured if they understood the city's foundation, maybe they'd believe they could be part of building its future. The tunnel opened into a wider space that had once been a subway platform. Remnants of old tile work still decorated the walls, faded mosaics telling the story of a city that had always been about reinvention. You loved teaching, Amara observed. It wasn't a question. Marcus paused, his flashlight illuminating a section of wall where someone had painted a mural of hands reaching toward the sky. More than anything, until I couldn't afford to anymore. What do you mean? Teachers don't make enough to cover medical bills and funeral expenses and single parenthood. His voice was matter of fact, but she heard the pain underneath. Maintenance work pays better, has better hours for raising Zoe. The teaching was a luxury I couldn't afford. They walked in silence for a moment, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. What was your master's thesis topic? Amara asked. Healthcare access in underserved communities, systemic barriers and community-based solutions. He glanced at her. Probably sounds pretty boring to someone with your credentials. It sounds like exactly what the world needs, she said firmly. What's your proposed solution? Marcus stopped walking. In 3 years of working on his research, no one had ever asked him that question. Not his professors, not his classmates, not even Mrs. Rodriguez, who helped watch Zoe during his evening classes. Community health hubs, he said slowly. Medical facilities embedded in neighborhoods, staffed by local residents trained in basic healthcare. Prevention-focused, community-owned, designed to catch problems before they become emergencies. Like having trusted neighbors who happen to know medicine? Exactly. People who understand that Maria Rodriguez needs her diabetes medication in Spanish, and that the Jenkins family won't seek prenatal care unless they know their immigration status won't be questioned. Amara stopped walking too. That's brilliant. It's theoretical. It's revolutionary. She turned to face him fully. Marcus, do you understand what you've just described? You've solved the fundamental problem with American healthcare. You've made it human again. Something in her voice made his pulse quicken. The way she was looking at him, like he was more than just a maintenance man with impossible dreams. I haven't solved anything yet. It's just ideas on paper. The best changes start as ideas on paper. She stepped closer. What would you need to make it real? Funding, community buy-in, healthcare professionals willing to work in underserved areas. He paused, and someone with the medical expertise to design the actual care protocols. Someone like me? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Marcus's phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. Zoe's asking when you'll be home. The reminder of his real world, his responsibilities, broke the spell. We should keep moving. They navigated through more tunnels, past old maintenance rooms and forgotten storage spaces. At one point, they had to squeeze through a narrow passage where the ceiling had partially collapsed. Amara went first, and Marcus found himself close behind her, close enough to smell her perfume mixed with the dust of their underground journey. Marcus? Her voice was quiet in the darkness ahead of him. Yeah? When we get out of this, when the hearing's over and the evidence is presented, what happens to us? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? I mean, tomorrow morning I'm going to destroy everything I've built. My career, my reputation, my engagement. I'll probably never work in healthcare administration again. They emerged from the narrow passage into a wider tunnel. Marcus could see light ahead, a grate that led to street level. You'll find something else, he said. Someone with your skills, your intelligence. That's not what I'm asking. She turned to face him, and in the dim light filtering from above, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm asking if you think, if there might be a reason to rebuild, something worth starting over for. Marcus felt his carefully constructed walls wavering. This woman, brilliant, brave, beautiful, was asking him to imagine a future he'd never dared consider. Amara, I know it's crazy. We've known each other for 4 hours, but I've felt more alive, more myself, more hopeful in these 4 hours than I have in 2 years of being engaged. She stepped closer. Tell me I'm not imagining this. Tell me you feel it too. Marcus thought about Keisha, about the promise he'd made at her funeral to focus only on Zoe, about the walls he'd built around his heart to keep it safe. Then he looked at Amara, this incredible woman who'd crashed into his life with evidence that could change everything, who saw value in his dreams, who was willing to sacrifice everything for justice. I feel it, he said quietly. But what? But you're still wearing an engagement ring. Amara looked down at her hand, at the diamond that caught the light from above. Without hesitation, she pulled it off and dropped it into her dress pocket. Not anymore. The moment stretched between them, electric with possibility. Then Marcus's phone buzzed again, this time with an unknown number. Don't answer it, Amara said quickly, but Marcus was already looking at the caller ID. It's from the hotel. The phone rang again. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Williams. Richard Sterling's voice was smooth, cultured, dangerous. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Comment below if you've ever had to choose between security and following your heart, because Marcus is about to face the hardest decision of his life. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus kept his voice steady, but his free hand moved protectively toward Amara. Of course you do. Richard Sterling's voice carried the confidence of a man who'd never lost. You have my fiancée, and she has something that doesn't belong to her. Amara was shaking her head frantically, pointing toward the grate above them. They needed to move. Dr. Okafor made her own choice to leave, Marcus said, starting toward the ladder. Maybe you should ask yourself why. Mr. Williams, Marcus, isn't it? May I call you Marcus? The false friendliness in Richard's tone made Marcus's skin crawl. I know a great deal about you. Air Force veteran, widowed father, works nights to support his daughter's education. Very admirable. The threat was clear. Marcus stopped climbing. Here's what's going to happen, Richard continued. You're going to bring Amara to the Meridian Hotel parking garage, level B2, northwest corner. You're going to do this in the next 30 minutes, or I'm going to have a very interesting conversation with Child Protective Services about a father who abandons his 8-year-old daughter to go on midnight adventures. The line went dead. Amara was staring at him. What did he say? He threatened Zoe. Marcus's voice was hollow. He knows where she is, knows about her school, everything. We'll call the police. Richard Sterling sits on the Police Benevolent Fund Board. Half the force owes their overtime pay to his donations. Marcus leaned against the tunnel wall, suddenly exhausted. Maybe I should take you to him, keep Zoe safe. No. Amara's voice was fierce. Absolutely not. You don't understand. She's all I have left. If something happened to her because of this, nothing will happen to her. We'll figure this out. How? Marcus turned on her, 3 years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. How are we going to figure this out? I'm a maintenance worker. You're a doctor running from your own fiancé, and we're hiding in abandoned tunnels with evidence that could get us both killed. Amara flinched like he'd slapped her. This isn't your fault, he continued, hating himself even as the words came out. But maybe Richard's right. Maybe I'm just a nobody who got in over his head. You're not nobody. Her voice was quiet, steady. You're the man who saved my life, who listened to my dreams and shared your own, who spent 3 years learning everything he needs to know to fix a broken system. Pretty words don't change reality, don't they? She stepped closer. Marcus, look at me. Really look at me. Against his better judgment, he met her eyes. 6 hours ago, I was engaged to a man who saw me as a trophy, working for a system that treated patients like profit margins, living in a beautiful penthouse that felt like a prison. Her voice grew stronger. Then I crashed into a bathroom where a maintenance worker was fixing a broken faucet. And for the first time in years, I met someone who saw me, really saw me. Amara, you want to know what I see when I look at you? I see a man who loved his wife so much he's dedicated his life to making sure other families don't suffer like his did. I see a father who works nights so his daughter can have opportunities he never had. I see someone brilliant enough to design solutions that could revolutionize healthcare, humble enough to learn from everyone he meets, and brave enough to risk everything for a stranger. Marcus felt his walls crumbling. I see a man worth loving, she finished softly. Worth choosing, worth fighting for. The silence stretched between them, filled with possibility and fear. But if you want to walk away, Amara continued, if you want to take me to Richard and go back to your safe life, I understand. I won't blame you. Marcus thought about Tisha, about the promise he'd made to keep Zoe safe above all else. Then, he thought about the world he was leaving for his daughter. A world where healthcare was a privilege, where people like Richard Sterling made life and death decisions based on profit margins. What kind of father would I be if I taught Zoe that it's okay to let people die as long as we stay safe? Amara's smile was like sunrise. So what's the plan? She asked. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. I know someone who might help. Sarah Chen from Channel 5. She's been investigating healthcare fraud for months. If we can get to her. His phone rang. Richard again. Time's running out, Marcus. I need more time. You have 15 minutes. Parking garage, level B2. Come alone, or the next call I make is to child services. The line went dead again. We can't go there, Amara said. It's a trap. I know. Marcus was already texting Sarah Chen. But what if we don't show up alone? He hit send. Emergency. Need to meet. Meridian Hotel. B2 parking garage. 20 minutes. Bring cameras. His phone buzzed immediately. On my way. You're going to broadcast it? Amara realized. Turn his trap into our platform. Richard Sterling thinks he can control the story because he controls the system, but he can't control live television. They climbed up through the grate, emerging into an alley 3 blocks from the hotel. Dawn was still hours away, but the city was starting to stir. Early morning joggers, shift workers, the eternal pulse of Atlanta waking up. Marcus? Amara's voice was uncertain for the first time since they'd met. Yeah? What happens after? If this works, if we expose everything, if Richard gets arrested, what happens to us? Marcus stopped walking. What do you want to happen? I want to help you build those community health hubs. I want to use my medical knowledge and your community understanding to create something real. She paused. I want to meet Zoe properly. I want to learn how to braid her hair and help with her science homework. And I want to find out if what we're feeling is real or just adrenaline and shared danger. Marcus reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. I already know it's real. How? Because when Richard threatened Zoe, my first instinct wasn't to protect her by giving you up. It was to protect her by fighting back. With you. He squeezed her hand. Because somehow in 6 hours, you've become part of what I need to protect. They were standing at the corner where they could see the Meridian Hotel, its windows blazing with light. Security vehicles circled the building like sharks. Together then? Amara asked. Together. They walked toward the hotel hand in hand, ready to face whatever waited in the parking garage. Behind them, the Atlanta skyline stretched toward the horizon, a city built on the dreams of people brave enough to start over. What would you sacrifice for love and justice? Let me know your thoughts, because Marcus and Amara are about to risk everything for both. The parking garage smelled of exhaust and fear. Level B2 stretched out before them like a concrete cavern, pillars casting long shadows under fluorescent lights. Marcus counted at least 6 black SUVs positioned strategically around the space, blocking potential exits. Sarah better hurry, he murmured, checking his phone. No response to his follow-up texts. What if she doesn't come? Amara's voice was steady, but he could feel the tension in her hand. Then we improvise. Richard Sterling stepped out from behind a pillar, flanked by 4 private contractors in matching gray suits. Even in the harsh parking garage lighting, he looked immaculate. Perfectly pressed tuxedo, silver hair slicked back, smile that belonged in boardrooms and country clubs. Amara, darling. His voice echoed off the concrete walls. You look tired. I look free, she replied, not letting go of Marcus's hand. Richard's eyes flicked to their interlaced fingers, and his smile grew colder. How touching. Although I have to wonder what you see in my replacement, sweetheart. A maintenance worker? Really? I see a man with integrity, Amara said firmly. Something I should have valued more in a partner. Integrity doesn't pay for penthouse apartments or children's private school tuition. Richard's gaze shifted to Marcus. Speaking of which, how is little Zoe? Still at Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment? Unit 4B? Marcus felt ice in his veins. If you touch her. I won't have to, as long as you cooperate. Richard held out his hand. The flash drive, Amara. Let's end this melodrama. So you can continue letting people die for profit? So I can prevent a few isolated incidents from destroying thousands of jobs, collapsing a healthcare system that serves millions of patients, and ruining the lives of everyone associated with Sterling Healthcare. Richard's voice hardened. Including yours. Isolated incidents? Marcus stepped forward. My wife wasn't an incident. She was a person, a teacher, a mother. She was one person, Mr. Williams. I'm trying to save an institution that serves hundreds of thousands. By denying care to people who need it most. By making difficult decisions about resource allocation. Not everyone can be saved, Mr. Williams. It's a harsh reality of healthcare economics. The casual dismissal of Keisha's life hit Marcus like a physical blow. This was the man who'd signed her death warrant with a pen stroke, who'd reduced her to a line item in a budget report. She could have been saved, Marcus said quietly. The medication she needed cost less than your suit. Perhaps. But multiply that by thousands of similar cases, and suddenly you're talking about millions in losses. Shareholders don't invest in healthcare to lose money, Mr. Williams. They invest to make money while doing good. In that order? Richard shrugged. Profit enables charity. Without sustainable revenue, there's no healthcare system at all. And without conscience, there's no healthcare worth having. The voice came from behind them. Sarah Chen stepped out of the shadows, camera operator in tow, both of them capturing everything. "I hope you don't mind," Sarah continued, not taking her eyes off Richard. "I brought some friends from the other networks. This seemed like a story Atlanta should hear." More camera crews emerged from behind vehicles. Channel 2, Channel 11, even CNN had a correspondent present. The parking garage was suddenly blazing with portable lights and rolling cameras. Richard's composed mask slipped for the first time. "This is private property. You're trespassing." "Actually, this is a public story about public health," Sarah replied. "Dr. Okafor, would you like to share what's on that flash drive with our viewers?" Amara looked at Marcus, then at the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen of Atlanta, my name is Dr. Amara Okafor, Chief Medical Officer for Sterling Healthcare Systems, and I'm about to show you evidence of systematic healthcare fraud that has resulted in preventable deaths throughout our city." "Amara, stop." Richard's voice was sharp with panic. "You're destroying yourself. Us. Everything we've built." "I'm destroying a lie. We haven't built anything, Richard. We've profited from pain." She held up the flash drive. "This contains 5 years of internal communications showing deliberate denial of care to maximize profits. Pregnancy complications is rated as non-essential. Cancer treatments delayed until patients became too expensive to treat. Mental health crises ignored until they became medical emergencies." The cameras focused on the small device that contained so much truth. "Dr. Okafor," Sarah Chen interrupted. "Can you give us specific examples?" "Keisha Williams," Amara said without hesitation. "Gestational diabetes that could have been managed with proper monitoring. Denied coverage for essential equipment. She died in a hospital lobby while Sterling Healthcare executives debated cost-benefit ratios." Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. 3 years of grief. 3 years of believing no one cared about Keisha's story, and now this woman was speaking her name to the world. "That's enough," Richard signaled to his security team. "Cut the cameras." "Actually, no." Marcus stepped between the contractors and the camera crews. "You've controlled this story for too long. It's time Atlanta heard the truth." "Mr. Williams, you're making a mistake. Think about your daughter." "I am thinking about her. I'm thinking about the world I'm leaving for her." Marcus's voice grew stronger. "I'm thinking about all the daughters who deserve better than a healthcare system that values profit over people." Richard's composure cracked completely. "You're nobody. A maintenance worker with delusions of grandeur. You think you can take down an entire healthcare system?" "No," Marcus replied calmly, "but I think the truth can. And I think Dr. Okafor is brave enough to tell it." Amara stepped forward, addressing the cameras directly. "Tomorrow morning, I was scheduled to testify at a federal health committee hearing as a character witness for Sterling Healthcare. Instead, I'll be presenting evidence of systematic fraud, deliberate malpractice, and criminal negligence." She pulled out her phone, accessing cloud storage. "I've uploaded copies of all documentation to multiple servers. Patient names have been redacted to protect privacy, but the patterns are clear. Sterling Healthcare has been deliberately denying care to increase profit margins." "The patients affected," Sarah Chen prompted, "predominantly low income, predominantly communities of color, predominantly women facing pregnancy complications." Amara's voice was steady, professional. "The algorithm wasn't random, it was designed." Richard made a desperate gesture to his security team, but the parking garage was now full of news crews, hotel security, and gathering crowds drawn by the commotion. "Dr. Sterling," Sarah Chen called out, "do you have a response to these allegations?" Richard straightened his tie, attempting to regain his composure. "These are the desperate fabrications of a disturbed woman facing personal and professional pressures. Sterling Healthcare stands by its record of serving all communities." "Then you won't mind submitting to a federal investigation?" Marcus asked. "We welcome any legitimate inquiry into our practices." "Good," said a new voice. FBI agent Patricia Morrison stepped forward with a team of federal investigators. "Dr. Sterling, you're under arrest for healthcare fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and racketeering." The parking garage erupted. Camera flashes, shouted questions, the chaos of a major story breaking in real time. In the middle of it all, Marcus felt Amara's hand find his again. "Is it over?" she asked quietly. "The legal part is just beginning. But the cover-up, Yeah, that's over. She turned to face him, and despite the chaos around them, for a moment it was just the two of them in the concrete cavern where everything had changed. Marcus? Yeah? I love you. The words hit him harder than Richard's threats, harder than the media circus, harder than anything that had happened in the last 6 hours. I love you too, he said, meaning it completely. From the moment you crashed into that bathroom, I think I've been falling in love with you. We've known each other for 6 hours. Sometimes a lifetime happens in one night. She smiled, the kind of smile that made him believe in second chances. What happens now? Now we go home. I make you breakfast, you meet Zoe properly, and we figure out how to build something better. Together? Together. As FBI agents led Richard Sterling away in handcuffs, as news crews transmitted the story across Atlanta and beyond, Marcus and Amara walked out of the parking garage hand in hand. They were walking into an uncertain future, but they were walking into it together. Behind them, the Meridian Hotel blazed with light, witness to one impossible night when a maintenance worker and a doctor changed everything. Ahead of them, Atlanta was waking up to a new day, and the promise that healthcare might finally become about healing instead of profit. Subscribe to Untold Triumphs if you believe love and justice can triumph together. What story should we tell next? 6 months later, the community health clinic smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Marcus adjusted the last light fixture while Amara reviewed patient files at the reception desk. Through the windows, they could see the line of families waiting for the grand opening. Some with insurance, some without, all welcome. Nervous? Marcus asked, climbing down from the ladder. Excited, Amara corrected. For the first time in my life, I'm going to practice medicine the way it should be practiced. The clinic was everything Marcus had envisioned in his master's thesis, made real through Amara's medical expertise and the settlement money from Sterling Healthcare's federal conviction. 3 examination rooms, a basic lab, and most importantly, a community meeting space where neighbors could learn about preventive care in their own languages. Dr. Amara, Mr. Marcus, Zoe burst through the front door, school backpack bouncing. Mrs. Rodriguez says the news trucks are here again. Just a few interviews, sweetheart, Marcus assured her. Then we can start seeing patients. Zoe had adapted to their new life with the resilience of childhood. Amara hadn't tried to replace her mother. Instead, she'd become something new. The woman who helped with science homework, who taught Zoe to say stethoscope in Igbo, who understood that some changes made a family stronger instead of different. Can I help check people in? Zoe asked hopefully. After your homework, Amara said with gentle authority. Education first, then service. Yes, ma'am. Zoe grinned and headed for the back office where they'd set up a homework station. Marcus watched the easy interaction with familiar warmth. Over 6 months, he'd watched Amara and Zoe build their own relationship. Not forced or rushed, but organic and real. She loves you, you know, he said softly. I love her too, more than I expected to love anyone's child. Not anyone's child, our child. Amara looked up from her files and he saw the tears she was trying to hide. Our child, if you want, if you're ready, if... She silenced him with a kiss that tasted like forever. Yes, she whispered against his lips, to all of it, yes. The front door opened again, bringing Sarah Chen and a camera crew. Dr. Okafor, Mr. Williams, are you ready for the interview? They'd done dozens of interviews over the months. Senate hearings, medical conferences, community meetings. The Sterling healthcare scandal had led to federal healthcare reform, new oversight procedures, and criminal convictions that reached all the way to Washington. But this interview felt different, more personal. We're here at the Atlanta Community Health Clinic, Sarah began, where former Sterling healthcare executive Dr. Rithre Amara Okafor and community health advocate Marcus Williams are revolutionizing healthcare access in underserved neighborhoods. The camera focused on them, but Marcus barely noticed. He was watching Amara in her element, confident, passionate, describing their model of community-integrated healthcare. The traditional model treats patients as customers visiting a business, Amara explained. Our model treats healthcare as a community resource, like schools or libraries. Everyone contributes what they can, everyone receives what they need. And the results so far? Sarah prompted. Prenatal mortality in our service area has dropped 30%, Marcus replied. Diabetes management has improved dramatically. Children are getting vaccines on schedule, seniors are managing chronic conditions before they become emergencies. Most importantly, Amara added, people trust us. They come in when they feel something's wrong, instead of waiting until it's too late. Like Keisha had to wait. The thought was still painful, but different now. Not a wound that wouldn't heal, but a scar that reminded him why the work mattered. After the cameras left, they opened the doors to their first official day of patients. Maria Rodriguez, who'd helped watch Zoe through so many late nights, was first in line. Diabetes check, she said with a shy smile. But also, I wanted to say thank you for showing us what's possible. The day passed in a blur of routine miracles. Blood pressure checks that would prevent heart attacks, depression screenings that would save lives, pregnancy consultations that would ensure healthy babies and healthy mothers. Near closing time, a young father arrived with his pregnant wife, both looking nervous and uncertain. We don't have insurance, he said quietly, but we heard. You heard right, Amara said warmly. Let's take care of you and your baby. Marcus watched from the doorway as Amara guided the couple toward an examination room. The young father looked exactly like Marcus had 8 years ago, scared, hopeful, desperate to protect his family. But this time, the story would be different. That evening, they sat on the front porch of their new house. Nothing fancy, just enough space for a family in a neighborhood where Zoe could walk to school. Amara was reading patient files while Marcus worked on community outreach plans. Daddy? Zoe appeared in the doorway, already in her pajamas. Will you tell me the story again? Which story, sweetheart? About how you and Dr. Amara met. Marcus exchanged a glance with Amara, who was smiling behind her paperwork. Well, he began, pulling Zoe onto his lap. It was a very unusual night at work. He told her the sanitized version, the one about helping someone in trouble, about standing up for what's right, about how sometimes the most important things happen when you least expect them. And then, what happened? Zoe asked, even though she knew the story by heart. Then Dr. Amara helped Daddy build something beautiful, a place where people could get better when they were sick, no matter who they were or how much money they had. Like a magic hospital? Like a place where love is the best medicine, Amara added, looking up from her files. Zoe considered this seriously. Are you going to marry Daddy? The question hung in the evening air, full of 8-year-old directness. Marcus looked at Amara, who was trying not to laugh. Would that be okay with you? Amara asked. Only if you promise to stay forever and ever. Forever and ever, Amara agreed solemnly. Later, after Zoe was asleep, Marcus and Amara sat on the porch swing, planning the next day's patient schedule. It was ordinary in the best possible way, the kind of quiet evening Marcus had never dared to dream about. Any regrets? He asked. About what? Giving up the penthouse, the salary, the prestige, the life you could have had. Amara set down her paperwork and curled against his side. I gave up a life that wasn't mine to live. I found a life worth living. Even if it means getting up at 6 a.m. to see patients who pay in homemade tamales? Especially then. She kissed his cheek. Those tamales are amazing. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their neighborhood. Children playing, families gathering for dinner, the ordinary symphony of community life. Marcus? I have something to tell you. He tensed, alert to the change in her voice. What? She pulled out a small velvet box. I know traditionally the man does this, but I'm not a traditional woman. Marcus stared at the box, his heart racing. Marcus Williams, she said, opening the box to reveal a simple gold band. You saved my life in a hotel bathroom 6 months ago. But more than that, you showed me what it means to live a life of purpose, to build something that matters, to love someone completely. She took a shaky breath. Will you marry me? Amara? I know it's unconventional. Yes. And I know we're already planning a future together. Yes. But I wanted to make it official, wanted to ask you properly. Amara. He turned to face her fully. Yes. Yes to marrying you. Yes to building this life together. Yes to everything. She slipped the ring onto his finger, and it fit perfectly, like everything about their impossible love story. When? He asked. When do you want? Marcus thought about it, about the clinic they'd built, the community they served, the daughter they were raising together, about the night that had changed everything, and all the ordinary days that had followed. Tomorrow, he said. I don't want to wait anymore. The wedding was small, held in the clinic's community room. Zoe was the flower girl. Mrs. Rodriguez cried through the entire ceremony, and Sarah Chen served as both officiant, online ordination, and photographer. But the moment Marcus would remember forever was when Amara spoke her vows. I promise to love you in sickness and in health, she said, voice steady and sure. But I also promise to love you in purpose and in service. To build a life with you that honors the people who came before us and protects the people who come after us. To choose each other every day, in hotel bathrooms and community clinics and wherever this crazy love takes us. I promise, Marcus replied, to fix whatever's broken, to build whatever's needed, and to love you exactly as much as you deserve, which is more than I ever thought possible. They kissed as husband and wife while their chosen family cheered and the community they served celebrated around them. That night, after the reception, after Zoe was asleep in her new room, Marcus and Amara stood in their bathroom, just a regular bathroom in a regular house, nothing like the marble luxury where they'd met. No regrets? Amara asked, echoing his earlier question. Marcus thought about Keisha, about the grief that had defined 3 years of his life. About the night when a woman in an emerald gown had crashed into his world, carrying evidence that would change everything. About the daughter sleeping down the hall who now had 2 parents who loved her. About the patients they'd serve tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that. No regrets, he said firmly. Just gratitude. For what? For broken faucets, for terrible timing, for the chance to fix something that really matters. He kissed his wife, and tasted the promise of all their ordinary, extraordinary days to come. Outside their window, Atlanta hummed with its eternal energy, a city that had always been about reinvention. But inside their home, everything was exactly as it should be. A family built on love, a purpose built on justice, and a future built on the unshakable belief that sometimes the most important things happen when you least expect them. Even in hotel bathrooms. Especially in hotel bathrooms. Thank you for following this journey with Untold Triumphs. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of love, justice, and second chances. What story should we tell next? Share your suggestions below, because everyone deserves to have their triumph told.